Rain tapped the metal roof of the old tool shed in a steady, nervous rhythm. Under the lowest shelf, a small brown puppy pressed his belly to the cold dirt and tried not to shake. Every time thunder rolled, he tucked his nose deeper under his paws, as if he could hide the sound inside his fur. Outside, the yard smelled like wet grass and mud. A loose gate swung and clicked in the wind. The puppy lifted his head at each click, ears twitching, hoping it might be someone coming back for him. He was not a tiny puppy anymore, but he was still young. His paws looked a little too big for him, and his fur stuck up in damp spikes. A piece of rope still hung from his collar, frayed at the end like it had been chewed or snapped. When he shifted, the rope dragged softly over the dirt. He listened. The shed was full of small sounds that made his heart jump. The drip of water from a leaky corner, the scrape of a mouse somewhere behind a bag of seed, the soft creak of the shelf above him as if it was breathing. He had learned to stay quiet. Quiet meant no trouble. Quiet meant you did not draw eyes to yourself. Still, his stomach tightened with hunger, and he could not help it. A low whine slipped out of his throat before he could stop it. He froze, startled by his own voice, and then waited for something to happen. Nothing did. After a long moment, he pushed himself forward on his elbows and peered out from under the shelf. The shed door was cracked open just enough to show a slice of gray daylight. Water ran down the wood and dripped from the hinge. His nose worked hard, pulling in the world. Rain, dirt, old oil, and faintly the smell of food from far away, the kind that made his mouth water and his legs want to run. He took one careful step, then another, paws sinking into the damp ground. The rope on his collar caught on a stone and jerked him back. He stumbled, then sat down fast, eyes wide, as if the rope had scolded him. He lowered his head and waited again. The gate clicked. This time it was closer. The puppy stood very still. He did not bark. He did not growl. He simply stared toward the thin gap at the door, ears forward, tail tucked but trembling. A shape moved past the gap, quick and low. Not a person, too small, too fast. It disappeared, and the yard went quiet except for the rain. The puppy took a step toward the door. The rope dragged behind him like a shadow that would not leave. Another sound came, softer than the gate, softer than the rain. A thin, high noise that did not fit in the shed at all. Meow. The puppy froze, his head tilted, confusion making his ears lift and fall. He had heard cats before at a distance. This sounded closer, and it sounded lost. He inched to the door and pressed his nose to the crack. Cold air slid over his whiskers. Outside, rain misted the ground, turning the yard into a flat, shiny world. Near the shed wall, something small huddled beside an upside-down bucket. It was almost the same color as the mud, which made it hard to see. It moved again, and the puppy noticed the tiny tremble of its body. A kitten. Very small, much smaller than any cat he remembered. Its fur was soaked and clung to its thin sides. It tried to tuck itself tighter against the bucket, but the wind pushed rain under the rim. The kitten let out another meow, weaker this time, and then stopped, as if it had used up all its strength. The puppy's paws shifted on their own. He did not think in words. He felt a pull in his chest, like when he saw another dog at the fence and wanted to go close, but this pull was different. It was not excitement. It was worry. He nudged the door with his shoulder. The old hinge squealed. The kitten's head snapped up, wide eyes pale in the gray light. It stared straight at him. Its body went stiff, ready to run, but it did not move. There was nowhere dry to go. The puppy stepped out into the rain. Cold drops hit his back and made him flinch, but he kept going. He approached slowly, keeping his head low the way dogs do when they do not want to scare someone. The kitten pressed itself flatter. Its ears went back. Its mouth opened for a warning sound, but only a tiny squeak came out. The puppy stopped a few feet away. He sat down. He looked away from the kitten on purpose, glancing at the ground like he had nothing to prove. His tail did not wag. It stayed low, but it loosened a little, no longer tight against his belly. Rain collected on his nose and slid off. The kitten watched him without blinking. The puppy leaned forward just an inch and sniffed the air. The kitten smelled like wet leaves and fear. Underneath that was the warm, living smell that meant family, even if you did not know the name. A gust of wind pushed harder. The bucket wobbled. The kitten shivered so strongly its paws scraped the mud. The puppy looked back at the shed door. The dark opening seemed suddenly like the best place in the world. He stood, turned, and took 2 steps toward the shed. Then he paused and glanced over his shoulder at the kitten, as if asking a question without making a sound. The kitten did not move. The puppy walked back toward it, careful not to rush, and lowered his head beside the bucket. He nudged the edge with his nose, pushing it slightly so it blocked the wind better. He tried again, shifting it just enough to make a small pocket of shelter. The kitten stared, confused. It blinked once slow. The puppy lay down in the mud between the kitten and the open yard, using his own body as a wall. He did not touch the kitten. He just stayed there, taking the reins so it did not have to. For a moment, the kitten's eyes softened. It inched forward and pressed its side against the bucket again, now closer to the puppy's warm flank. Not touching him, but not as far away. The puppy's shoulders relaxed a little. He let out a long breath that puffed in the damp air. Then a new sound cut through the rain. Not the gate. Footsteps. Slow, heavy steps on wet ground, coming from the far side of the yard. The puppy's head lifted sharply. His body went still, like a string pulled tight. The kitten's ears flicked and it shrank back into its tiny shelter. The footsteps stopped. Something metal clinked, like a chain or a latch being handled. The puppy rose, placing himself in front of the bucket. He did not bark. He just watched the gray yard with wide, alert eyes as the shed door, behind him, creaked a little wider in the wind. And then a voice, muffled by rain, spoke from somewhere near the loose gate. The puppy could not see who it was, but he knew someone was there. And the kitten, hiding behind the bucket, let out one small, trembling meow.